I am very pleased to introduce today's video. It is, I think, the very first collab I've ever posted on the channel. Today I'm going to be talking to Rob from Exploitation Reviews here on YouTube. Rob commented on my exploitation sampler video, mentioned that he was a writer on Grindhouse database, and I was like, oh, no way. And I clicked on him and then I discovered his treasure trove of a YouTube channel. So very quickly we got to talking about collab ideas, and this is the first one to come to fruition. So this is just going to be a conversation talking about exploitation films in general. You can watch this like a regular video, or you can just kind of relax and listen to it like a podcast. I'm also very congested at the time of filming this, so please bear with me. Thank you so much to Rob from Exploitation Reviews for doing this collaboration with me and for entertaining all of my dumb noob questions. Please go check out Exploitation Reviews. There is some supreme content on this channel. Okay. Hello, I'm here with Rob from Exploitation Reviews here on YouTube. I recently discovered your channel. It's really freaking awesome.
Thanks.
It's exactly what I've been kind of looking for. It seems to not be discussed on YouTube as much as it should be. Exploitation Cinema, that is.
Right, I agree, yeah. Part of that, I think, is YouTube doesn't want us to discuss it. They would very much like it if everything on YouTube was completely safe for 13, 14, and 15-year-olds, but exploitation films aren't. So the algorithm, I think, works against us.
I hate that. And I feel like the word exploitation in itself has bad connotations.
Yeah.
Makes it less searchable, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. The word, I mean, it is kind of controversial, I think, yeah.
Okay, so I have a series of questions to ask you today as kind of like a newbie to exploitation cinema.
Awesome.
Just to kind of get your opinions and perspective. But I guess before we start, I do want to ask you, what got you into exploitation movies?
Oh, well, I think I was into them before I knew what they were. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, and all the time, almost every weekend, my family would go to the video store and we would rent VHS tapes, and, we often rented low-budget horror movies or, like biker films or whatever. And so I was like watching these things as a kid before I knew what exploitation was. I just, as a kid who was interested in horror, so I was like, oh, let's watch this. It looks like it's got bloody fun in it. So yeah, really, so from, I don't know, when I was like 7, I guess, I started watching these movies. But some of them, of course, I discovered later. So with like blaxploitation films, for example, I didn't figure out what those were until later, like maybe high school or something. I had seen some on TV as a kid, but, it was kind of like Tarantino, like in Reservoir Dogs, they're talking about Pam Grier and things like this. And I was like, who is this? And then, so it's kind of like from watching Reservoir Dogs that I figured out who Pam Grier was.
Nice.
But with a horror film from the very beginning.
Okay, great. So it's just kind of always been there for you.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
Okay, so on your channel, I love your trailer. I love the way you define exploitation cinema on your channel. So for those who haven't visited your channel yet, could you give us a brief definition here?
For exploitation film? Sure. So, I mean, the definition is sort of, it's kind of loose, but the basic idea is these are lower budget films that are in some way in competition with mainstream films, and the way they try to get money, even though they don't have big budgets or big stars or famous directors, is they appeal to other interests that audiences have, particularly interests in like more violence or more nudity, things that you're not going to get out of a Tom Cruise movie, for example. And that's like the big category of exploitation. But then there are other kinds of exploitation too, where the exploitation filmmakers will try to exploit current trends. So for example, when Jaws came out in '75, just this huge, massive hit. So filmmakers like, well, if people like a shark in the ocean, they'll like a bear in the forest, and they made Grizzly. Or they'll like piranhas in a river, and they made Piranha. So you get all these sort of animal attack movies, which are all basically Jaws in a different situation. And that's also a kind of exploitation film as well.
Great, thank you. That was a great definition. So next, from the impression that I'm getting, it seems that the golden age of exploitation cinema is like 60s and 70s. Would you say that that's true, or what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. This is important. Those times were important. So I think some of it depends on what type of exploitation you're interested in. I mean, if you're talking about sexploitation films, yeah, 60s. That's where it was. That's the time for sexploitation films. And then the 70s. That's when we started to get more violent horror films because the Hays Code stopped being enforced in 1968. And then at the end of 1968, they introduced the rating system. And the rating system gave directors a lot more freedom to make the kind of films they wanted to. So into the 70s, you get Dawn of the Dead, and you get your Halloween, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Black Christmas, and all these films that no way would have been allowed under the Hays Code 10 or 20 years before.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that before I even knew what the Hays Code was. There seemed to be something that flipped in the late 60s, and then things just got cool.
Yeah, that's what it was. The Hays Code stopped being enforced completely, like in 1968, and then that's when it died. Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So going off of that, are exploitation films still being made today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I go to the local video store to buy them all the time. There's tons and tons of indie films out there that try to get you to buy them by putting, a sexy woman on the cover or some gory stuff on the cover. And some of them are good and most of them are garbage. And, you just gotta try it out and see if you can find those gems. But there definitely are modern, low-budget exploitation gems.
And they bait you with their covers and their titles, and...
They do, yes.
Then it's like a treasure hunt, trying to get through all the bad stuff to find good ones.
Exactly, yep.
Next, my question is, are the terms describing films, are the terms exploitation and grindhouse synonymous?
No. There's a lot of overlap in what the grindhouses would show. They showed a lot of exploitation films. But the grindhouses, these were these theaters, movie theaters, like in the inner cities, that would show, they try to like grind through a lot of movies, excuse me, in a short amount of time. So, you can have the theater for a weekend, and if it does well, we'll keep it for longer. But it's just like every week they were putting more movies out there, and you can get, lots of double features. And these were like the grindhouses, like on 42nd Street in New York. They did show a lot of exploitation films, but they also showed non-exploitation films as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Just how we were talking about exploitation, that word has a bad connotation. I think grindhouse makes me think of someone getting ground through a machine. So it kind of brings this like horror imagery into my mind.
Yeah, they are sort of like grinding the audience through the theater. Like, come in, watch these two movies. If you don't like them, we'll have two different movies on Wednesday, and just, constantly trying to get that traffic through the theaters. Part of why this happened was, a lot of people left the cities in the 1950s to set up, Leave It to Beaver suburban lives in the suburbs. And they left behind all these big theaters in the downtown areas, and they were trying to make money to keep these theaters open. So that's when they tried a lot of different techniques to try to get enough ticket sales to survive. Hence the grind. Yeah.
Love it. The next question I have, what is your favorite and least favorite exploitation genre?
My favorite, probably the sexploitation films. Those are the ones that I think I watch the most often and have the most fun with. So probably those are my favorite. A close second would be blaxploitation films. I like a lot of those, like a lot. My least favorite, the cannibal films, these Italian cannibal films. I don't like them, like Cannibal Ferox. I don't like that movie. I don't like Cannibal Holocaust, even though some people just love it and think it's brilliant. But none of these movies do much for me. They're just kind of gross. And for me, it needs to be a little bit more than just gross. You actually have to have some good writing, and most of these movies have really terrible writing, so I just can't tolerate them. So I know, plenty of people are like, oh, yeah, Rob's not a real exploitation fan if he doesn't like cannibal movies, but I don't. I don't like cannibal movies.
I respect that. I subject myself to them, but I don't know why. And I wouldn't say that I'm glad after it's done.
Right.
I described Cannibal Ferox as the most tolerable one I've seen so far, but that still doesn't mean I like it.
No. Yeah, I don't like that movie, like, at all. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, I kind of respect for... I mean, the whole, like, found footage thing was pretty cool, and, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit for kind of popularizing that. I mean, maybe they even invented it, I'm not sure. So they deserve some creative credit there, but I don't like the movie.
Fair enough. Okay, next. Can Hollywood make an exploitation movie?
They do sometimes. It's quite rare, but I mean, I can think of two examples. I mean, I think Showgirls, the Paul Verhoeven film, is an exploitation film. I mean, and another one quite a bit older is Mandingo. That's a blaxploitation film, and it is just. I mean, it really is an exploitation film. It's dark, and it's nasty, and it's cruel, and yeah, that's everything you want from an exploitation film. Beyond those two, I don't know, they're quite rare. I mean, also part of, by definition, exploitation films are these low-budget things trying to compete with Hollywood, so it's kind of weird to say that Hollywood is making them. But if it wasn't like a big Hollywood name or production company, yeah, Mandingo would definitely be an exploitation film, and so would Showgirls.
That's helpful. That's a question I've been having for sure. And when I was kind of Googling around, trying to learn about exploitation movies, there was one website or one list that said that John Wick was an exploitation movie. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, not by the definitions that I work under anyway. I mean, Keanu Reeves, super famous, everyone knows him, everyone likes him, very high production value on those films. I wouldn't put that in there. And they're not, like, dark or disturbing in any way either. It's just gun porn is what John Wick is. Right. Which is fine. Like, I like the first one, okay. I thought it was a fine movie. Kind of cheesy and a little bit stupid, but that's fine. I like cheesy and stupid.
That's why we're here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was strange too. It just seemed like they pulled that out of nowhere. I think I was looking up famous exploitation movies, and it had John Wick on there.
Oh, like in the Google like search results or whatever, they give you suggestions?
It was some article.
Oh, okay.
Some list, Mm-hmm. This is a big one for me.
Okay.
Are all horror movies exploitation movies?
No. I would say no. I mean, so the exploitation films, they're, traditionally, there's those ones that are trying to entice viewers by promising, like more nudity, or more overt displays of violence. So, I mean, typically, like slasher films are considered to be safely in the exploitation category. Creature features for similar reasons. And zombie films are often thrown in with exploitation films because of all the, the gory gut munching and things like that. But, I mean, something like a haunted house movie, I mean, these are not exploitation films. Nobody is watching haunted house movies because they want to see a woman in a shower get chased by a ghost. I mean, that's not why people go to these things. So, nothing like in the Conjuring universe is going to be an exploitation film, or something like Poltergeist, or these I don't think would qualify. Got to have more violence and more sexiness, I guess, to count.
That makes a lot of sense. That's helpful. So, similarly to that, are all exploitation movies B movies? And are all B movies exploitation movies?
No, some directors don't like the term B-movie because B-movie doesn't really exist anymore. So, I mean, in the old days, what a B-movie was is, Hollywood would make their, the A movie, like the play in the theater, and then when you buy a ticket to that, you could also stay and watch the B movie. And then these were produced with, lower production values, not as famous people. They were like cheaper movies. But that whole system of, watching a movie and then staying for a second kind of cheaper movie, that doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed my whole life, and I'm not young, So, I know now people say B movie is like, an indie film or a low-budget movie or whatever, but that's not where the term comes from. And some exploitation directors today, like Lloyd Kaufman from Troma, he doesn't like the term B movie. He says he makes Troma movies, or he makes exploitation films, but not B movies. Those don't really exist.
That makes sense. I've learned many new things today so far. Okay, next. Are Lifetime movies and similar movies to that, are those exploitation movies?
Oh, that's a good question. They might be, yes. They are kind of exploiting an audience interest in this sort of, niche experience. So, maybe those count. I mean, they're not, like the violent and sexy kind of exploitation films, but they are cheap movies that are going after a certain audience. Yeah, okay, I'm fine calling those exploitation films.
I love it. I keep mulling that over in my mind, trying to figure out if Lifetime movies would apply. So when you search for the term exploitation movies on like TikTok or even YouTube, I see that many people are using this term to strictly describe extreme horror or like extremely disturbing movies like Salo or a Serbian film. Is this something that you have seen online yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And those movies are a part of the exploitation story, like extreme horror and really gross stuff like Salo and whatever, or a Serbian film. But that's only a small part of the story. There's all kinds of different exploitation films beyond that. In fact, on my channel, I don't really cover the horror stuff very often, just because there's so many other YouTube people who cover horror stuff. I'm like, well, you don't need me talking about it. I'll talk about the other kinds of exploitation films.
Yeah, I thought it seemed like it's missing part of the story, and people are kind of misdefining what exploitation movies are, because when you search it, you only get, the disturbing extreme horror.
Right, right, yeah.
So thank you for your service.
I'm here to serve, yeah. I mean, part of it, I think, on YouTube is, you got all these kids out there who, You've probably seen these videos too, where they have like, you know, these sort of like iceberg challenge things, and they like whatever. Like, I mean, half the time I don't think these kids are even watching these movies. They just want whatever, like the street cred for watching crazy stuff. Yeah, which, I mean, I don't know. I'm an old punk, so I would call these people posers. That's what I would call them. Man, they don't know what they're talking about half the time. But, you know, YouTube likes them because they don't show clips from the movies. I mean, I do, so YouTube gets mad. You know, and then it's just like them talking to an audience, which that's the kind of stuff YouTube likes. So they rise to the top of the search algorithms, and you know, the old people who know what they're talking about get ignored. That's life on the internet. Yeah, but I'm not bitter or anything.
Well, you're out there spreading the truth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Tell people where they can find your work, even if you have something to share outside of your YouTube channel.
So beyond the YouTube channel, I relatively regularly write reviews for the Grindhouse Cinema database. So in terms of exploitation stuff, that would be the other place to find me. So if you go there, I don't know how many writers we have now that submit things regularly, and there's me and there's Josiah Howard, and then the editor Pete. It might just be us three right now, but so yeah, Grindhouse Cinema database, lots of reviews. You can find my writing there as well.
I love that site. It's fun to just click around and explore.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, I think that's all my questions.
Awesome.
But hopefully we can do more collabs in the future.
Definitely, we can do that.
Thank you so much for appearing on my channel. I think you are my very first guest.
Wow, that's an honor. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah. Can't wait to continue binging all of your videos.
The early ones are pretty bad. They have gotten better, though, I think, yeah.
We all have to start somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. Right, I just have to tell myself not to watch the old ones, because otherwise I'll just delete them out of shame.
I get the same urge.
Yep, but yeah, that's how it goes.
All right, well, thanks again, and I will be talking to you soon.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you again, Rob at Exploitation Reviews, for doing this interview with me. I hope you guys enjoyed. I sure had a blast, and I will see you next time. Ciao for now.